I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. As of Valentine's Day, I have been a minister for 6 years, and this is my first ever Sunday message. That is to say that this is the first time I found a captive audience willing to listen to me. If this doesn't go well, you all walk out on me. I'm hitting a prison next time. So, I want to tell you what I'd like to share with you, which is about Genesis 1. So if you want to follow along on your phones or whatever you can, I want to talk about how Genesis 1 is actually telling us that consciousness is being filtered down, funneled down into individuality. We're all taught that we're one with God. And here at Unity, we believe it logically. But when it comes down to it, as Linda Martella Whitsitt put it, that it's in her book, Divine Audacity, by the way, it is socially risky to admit publicly that we're one with God. It's equally problematic to admit to ourselves. We all know how much craziness goes on in our own heads that would disqualify us. Yet, the beginning of Genesis shows that we are one with God. Not only that we're one with God, but we were there from the beginning. It's the account of us going from this undifferentiated state into one with a whole lot of qualifiers. We're smart, we're stupid, we're pretty, we're ugly, we're fast, we're slow. The list goes on and on. So that takes us to Genesis 1. And it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Now we're not talking about a physical creation here. There's no voyeuristic being sitting up there rubbing in beard oil while he watches us get naked and judges what he sees. We're talking about a completely formless state. No darkness, no light, nothing. If you will, close your eyes for just a moment and try seeing with your nose. This is what I'm talking about. There's nothing but awareness. And here's where it gets really interesting. It says, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Charles Fillmore taught that the Spirit, when we use that word, is only recognized when there is a consciousness to perceive it. So this is the very first mention of duality. That hovering that was mentioned, that's a state of readiness, and the waters represent unexpressed capacities. Our unexpressed capacities. We were there. So let's hit day 1. It says, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. This is the first flash of clarity. It's the dawning realization that awareness holds the power to illuminate itself. Remember when we were talking about the qualifiers, aerodynamic, diet intolerant, chronologically advanced, creatively truthful? This is the first qualifier. Light is good. That doesn't make the darkness bad. Rather, it's just the formless void that we saw with our noses. By the names day and night springing up in awareness, we have more qualifiers. This is where we're beginning to funnel down. Day is the type A, take charge, everything is possible state. Night is the smoke some pot and chill, because we're going to have some really good ideas coming up. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Now, I want to point out something, and this applies to all of the other days. Even when we call them days, just like this whole chapter is describing a spiritual event, we aren't really talking about days as we know them. It wasn't, there was night and there was day, but there was evening and there was morning. We read this as representing a day, but in fact, evening is the period of surrender and preparation. Morning is when the breakthrough comes. So with that, let's move on to day 2. It says, and God said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate the waters from the waters. So God made the expanse and separated the waters beneath it from the waters above, and so it was. And God called the expanse sky, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. So now we're getting into the really exciting part. This is consciousness and subconsciousness. Consciousness is represented by the waters above. Subconsciousness is represented by the waters below. The expanse is the space in which those two operate. And this is probably my very favorite part. When we think of ourselves as that expanse, what we can see is that consciousness and subconsciousness are not a part of our minds. This is not them doing their thing like we normally think about being separate from God. Rather, this is the space in which they operate. We are the space in which the subconscious and the conscious operate. We could talk about this for a month of Sundays, but for now, let's move on to day 3. So it says, and God said, let the waters under the sky be gathered into one place, so that the dry land may appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the earth bring forth vegetation, seed bearing fruits and fruit trees, each bearing fruit with seed according to its kind. And it was so. The earth produced vegetation, seed bearing plants according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. So day 1, we started with the vast void and funneled down so we had a few qualifiers. Now day 2, we've gotten a little bit of personal space, and we developed conscious and subconscious states so that our individuality can emerge. And now awareness is arranging the living room furniture, so to speak, so that eventually it can take on form. Things are getting organized. The water, which we talked about as representing those unexpressed capacities, are now becoming structured. The land is the foundation, so that individuality will emerge. We already talked about the waters below being the subconscious and the waters in general being the unexpressed capacities. Now they get named, which, much like the land emerging, helps to solidify things in this funnel. So we have this boundless potential and the formation of something stable and firm. The vegetation gets really interesting too, because here is where thought is born. All the vegetation, the seed-bearing plants and fruit trees, represent thoughts. More than that, they represent an automated system of multiplication. For us, that means that when we have a thought about one thing, like thoughts are going to start showing up and building upon themselves. We've decided that we want to get a fish. We start researching. We look at saltwater, freshwater tanks. Think about setting up a koi pond. And 2 hours later, we're deciding we need to become marine biologists. But the last thing that I want to point out about vegetation is this is proof we need snacks to survive. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. So day 4, we have, and God said, let there be lights in the sky in the expanse of the skies to distinguish between day and night, and let them be signs to mark the seasons and days and years, and let them serve as lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars as well. God set these lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth, to preside over the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. So quick recap. We've got day one, where there was the big, empty, void firmament that developed a spark of clarity. Day two, consciousness, subconsciousness, and the expanse all appeared. Day three, we gained a firm foundation for the thoughts to multiply on their own. Now we've got the sun, the moon, which are both, it's actually divine intelligence and personal intellect. Now, it must be noted here that the personal intellect has to get its light from the sun. On its own, it's just a big dumb rock. This is, no, I lost my place, sorry. This too is one that we can spend a lot of time on, but for now, I can't leave this without discussing the stars, because the stars are the individual sparks of awakening. Or in other words, these represent the billions of people yet to emerge. And it also explains why some stars are a whole lot dimmer than the others. So that was all to mark the seasons and the days and the years, and show how consciousness is now officially moving through cycles. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. So day 5, God said, let the waters teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky. So God created the great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, and with which the waters teemed according to their kinds, and every winged bird after its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters of the sea, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. I can't get started with this particular section without pointing out that the next time you start feeling fat, and this, yes, message was directly for myself, is that you need to remember whales were one of God's first great ideas. This day marks the emergence of individualized creative expression and a more complex consciousness. Prior to this, awareness went from the infinite potential to establishing order and forming stable thought structures and automated growth processes. Now, consciousness and subconsciousness are evolving. They are teeming with thought forms. The creatures of the deep include both the big and the small versions. We've got the whales, the manatee, Loch Ness, representing those big ideas in our subconscious. We've got the smaller sea creatures that are the automated, self-generating, supporting ideas. But unlike the vegetation, which is a passive self-perpetuation, this is a perpetuation that's reproducing and supporting ideas in the subconscious from a state of living awareness. The birds, on the other hand, are the higher-minded conscious thoughts that we're working to refine and direct and to direct clarity and understanding. So then God blessed them. It says it blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters of the earth and let birds multiply on the earth. I love this. The fact that there is a blessing here is another one of those really exciting elements to this whole chapter. This is showing a participation between awareness, that fabric of all that is, and the funneled individuality that's emerging. Here we have thoughts that are influencing on a deep, foundational level and spreading high-level thoughts and ideals. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 5th day. Now, day 6 is longer. I'm not going to read all that. The section is, I've just got to paraphrase it because there's just so much there. We are talking about livestock, land crawlers, beasts of the earth appearing, man's made in the image of God. God told him, here's all this stuff you can use. Then he checked everything out and deemed himself an excellent creator and called it a day. So metaphysically speaking, we have a lot going on with more thought forms. The livestock are the domesticated thoughts. Think of them like the workhorses, the dairy cows and the like. They are the animals that put the greatest hits album on repeat. They specifically cover things like day-to-day tasks. In our realm of thinking, it would be like brushing our teeth, walking, going to the bathroom. In other words, livestock are on the thoughts on a continuous loop. You all knew I had to. With Anne-Marie as my mentor, I had to put in one groaner. So, land crawlers take repetition to a whole new level. They put the album on perpetual replay. So that when somebody sneezes, they prompt you to say, God bless you. Like you're the local priest on call. Isn't it incredible that I love the land crawlers. They might be, I don't know, lots of this is my favorite. but isn't it incredible to see that even before we were formed, everything was in place for us to be neurotic and repetitive? I mean, doesn't it make you feel better that the next time you're telling that story for the 15th time, you're able to say, it's not dementia, honey. I was made this way. So the beasts of the earth are the wild, untamed aspects. They are our passions, instincts, and desires. The presence of the beast's thoughts are the evidence of the dance between the human and the divine. Thankfully, conscious awareness has declared all these beasts good, which means if you have that strong wild side, you just got permission to go buy that motorcycle, wear the leather pants, and head cross-country skeeter. Or, as several of you are doing, to buy a ticket to Africa and see your wild side up close and personal. Which brings us to this whole man part. Man is the highest expression of this whole creation process. Now, I know that does not work well with my whole funnel analogy, but bear with me, we're almost done. This is the moment that the I am was born. You'll note the verse said, let us make man in our image. This shows the cooperative nature and is once again a reminder that we, as awareness and Christ consciousness, were there helping to shape human individuality. The I am was given dominion over all the creatures, or in other words, over all thought forms. We have dominion over thoughts, behavior patterns, subconscious ideas, and the higher abstract ideas. We can harmonize them all. We have complete dominion.
Yes, we do.
Now we just have to make cats believe it. So that brings us to the whole male and female part of this chapter. Since we know we are talking about ideas and the unformed, this isn't about body parts. It's not about beards versus mascara or the eternal battle between the toilet seat up or down. You know, that should be the toilet lid. Anyway, we were made in the image of something without form, which means there's no nudies of the Holy Spirit floating around. The inclusion of male and female is the ultimate introduction to duality. And just like with the sea and the sky creatures, there came the instruction to be fruitful and multiply. Everywhere we look, we see that duality did just that. Black and white, early birds and night owls, Gary, introverts and extroverts, people who return shopping carts and those with no soul. And after God congratulated himself once again on being a really great creative genius, there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. So day 7. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the 7th day, God had finished the work. He'd finished the work he'd been doing, so that on that day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on that day he rested from all of the work that he had accomplished. And with that, my dear friends, the need for voicemail was born. So what do we do with all this? One, we remember where we began. Before the labels, before the limitations, the doubts, the fears, before we even took our first breath, we were part of the divine. Not separate, not lesser. We were there in the beginning, formed from pure awareness, infused with divine potential. Two, we reclaim our true nature. The world has spent years trying to convince us that we are small, flawed, and unworthy. But the story of creation isn't about us being separate from God. It's proof that we are divine expressions. No matter how chaotic our thoughts, how unqualified we might feel, or how much we've convinced ourselves otherwise, we are one with God. It's not up for debate. That's our truth. So 3, we act like it. Recognizing this truth isn't about feeling good. It's about transformation. If we truly embrace this, we start living differently. We stop asking, am I enough? And we start declaring, I am. We stop waiting for permission and start creating. We stop measuring ourselves by human limitations, and we start moving in divine power. So I challenge you this week, live as if you are who you were created to be. Not a dirtbag, not just another human trying to get by. A divine being with dominion, creativity, and boundless potential. Don't just think about it. Prove it. Act with the confidence of someone who was there from the beginning. Speak with the authority of someone who is an expression of the divine. Dream, create, love, and live like someone who knows, not hopes, but knows that they were made in the image of something vast, limitless, and unstoppable, because that is exactly who you are. Inside the bulletin, you'll find an insert with a message from your very own light. It's a reminder of who you truly are. And if you forget, you can join us here. Join us on the first Tuesday of every month at our house. Email, reach out, because with some good company, great conversation, there's oftentimes a few really well-placed aha moments that will help you jog your memory. Thank you so much for having me.